Welcome, everyone. It's our 50th anniversary. Yay! We're so glad that you've joined us to mark this occasion. A half century of Ombuds service to CU Boulder. It's a noteworthy milestone. And in particular, in my opinion, this is a significant event for the CU Boulder community. And why is that? It's because for half a century, generations of campus leaders have supported Ombuds work and understood its value. It is a remarkable commitment from this campus to 50 years of an Ombuds office here. So thank you, campus leaders. Today also marks a notable achievement for the Ombuds who came before us. And, quite frankly, we stand on their shoulders. Their consistent integrity and high caliber work has also ensured the ongoing continuity of this office. So we are grateful to the legacy of Ombuds past. And we are grateful for 50 years of steady support from our leadership that continues to this day. So on that note, I would like to invite our current leaders to say a few words. So we'll be starting with Chancellor Phil DiStefano, who will be followed by EVC COO Pat O'Rourke, and then EVC Provost Russ Moore. Chancellor?
Thank you, Kirsi, and thank you all for being here. And I'm excited to join all of you today as we celebrate the 50th anniversary of the CU Boulder Ombuds Office. The work of the Ombuds Office is critical to resolving conflict, clarifying a variety of university issues, and finding several civil outcomes that make CU Boulder stronger and more resilient. I am so grateful to the staff members within the Ombuds Office who sustain its mission and serve our campus constituents as well. The Ombuds Office was formed back in 1974. At that time, it was for students only, and then it expanded to include to include staff and faculty. The office navigated transitions and stumbles in the early formative years, and the very concept of an Ombuds office was relatively new in higher education. In the years since, the office has only grown in professionalism and efficacy, building respect and trust across the campus community. Conflict itself is not necessarily undesirable in a flagship public university like ours. A colleague years ago told me that the university should be a house of conflict if it wishes to pursue shared understanding and greater knowledge. But that conflict is only useful when it's built on a foundation of respect, reciprocity, and equity. So when individuals feel mistreated or misunderstood, the Ombuds staff works to rebuild that trust, respect, and civility necessary to ensure that we can have the kind of productive conflict that my colleague referenced. The Ombuds Office is a critical player in ensuring that we embrace these dialogues as necessary components of a healthy university and a healthy society. I'm so pleased that the Ombuds Office, now in its 50th year, is serving our faculty, staff, and students. The service that you provide is remarkable. And Kirsi, I wish you and your staff continued success. Thank you very much. And now I'd like to ask my colleague, Pat O'Rourke, to come up. Pat?
Hey, that's me. So I don't think that I could explain the value that the Ombuds Office adds any better than the Chancellor just did, because institutions of higher education are messy but interesting places, and having people who can help us negotiate that is extraordinarily important. So instead, I'm going to tell you about how I came to learn about the Ombuds Office. And the first thing that I did is I want to take you back in the time machine to 1988. I was in high school, and this was back when the newspaper used to get delivered to my house in Colorado Springs. And there was a cartoon strip called Bloom County, which had, it was based in Indiana in a small town, and one of the main characters was a penguin. And he worked at the Bloom-Picayune newspaper, and his role was he was the ombudsman. And what would happen is that people would come and bring him the complaints, and then he would work to resolve those with the community. And I saw the word ombudsman, and I didn't know what it meant, but that was my first exposure to it. And then I went on to college, and I didn't think about it again for years until I came into the university itself. And I think I was talking to Elvie one day, and she said, "You need to meet with the Ombuds person." And I said, "I don't know what that is." And so I said, "I need to find out what that is." And I actually did some research, and I understood that there's a long lineage for the position of ombuds, which is a person who actually serves as an intermediary between people in positions of power and people who are interacting with them to try to be able to bring different perspectives and peace to the relationship. And that really resonated with me. And it was very similar to the situation that I saw when I was doing litigation, which is that for years, lawyers would go to court and they would fight things out. But that we were spending more and more time figuring out how we could engage with alternative dispute resolution. And ultimately, whether it's through a mediator or through an ombuds person, I'm very grateful that we have people in the university whose roles are dedicated to us maintaining relationships rather than having those relationships fracture. And so the work that gets done every day through the Ombuds Office is often something that helps us to preserve the functions that we have at the university, preserve relationships, and make us stronger going forward because we've put people at the center of what we do. And it's the opportunity to have those relationships spared, to foster greater understanding between people within a university and resolve the conflicts that they might have. It's a truly extraordinary function. And so I approach it with a great deal of humility and gratitude because 99 times out of 100, we don't hear about the work that the Ombuds Office does. It doesn't come to Russ. It doesn't come to me. It doesn't come to Phil. It exists to be able to say, we had something and we were able to resolve it in a way that advances the university's interest, helps people find paths for greater understanding with each other. And that's a real gift. And so I'm really grateful that on this 50th anniversary, which is pretty momentous, that we're having an opportunity to actually recognize what sometimes is a quiet function in a way that recognizes that without this function, we wouldn't be as strong of an institution as we are. So I'm grateful to you, Kirsi, and to Liz, and to all the people who actually do that work, because even if it sometimes is unnoticed, it matters. So thank you. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. And Pat, I resonate to some of your comments. In some ways, the Ombuds Office is like an institutional gyroscope. You don't notice it, but it kind of keeps the institution steady at work, but you don't see it. I just like to reflect on the Ombuds Office in the context of my 13 years as a provost. We've had a pandemic. We've had a huge riot on the Hill. We've had one of the most transformative initiatives in the university's history in academic futures, which at the end we celebrate, but there was a lot of sausage making that went into it. We reorganized or are reorganizing our largest college. We've had conflicts amongst a couple of departments on our campus that garnered a lot of national news that was not positive. a complete overhaul of how we do our campus budgets, and a pending overhaul of how we enroll our students. So what's the big deal? I mean, it's a lot of change, and I think the Ombuds Office has been really instrumental in helping us navigate that change. Personally, the Ombuds Office is very important to me, and I think back when Kirsi interviewed, one of the conversations we had was really the role of the Ombuds Office and the importance of it. And it is kind of the silent office on campus. And one of the things that I challenged all of our candidates to think about is, how can this Ombuds Office be a national leader? And Kirsi, of course, said, of course, we're going to do that. And I think many of you may not know this, but both Kirsi and Liz hold national roles in the Ombuds profession. Liz with the American Bar Association, Kirsi and other national organizations. And what I like about that is I think that really promotes an environment of curiosity to talk about, how do we do our ombudsing? And I don't know how you do it. And there's some really great people who work in the Ombuds Office. And I really admire the dedication of those folks, because I can't imagine me being in the kinds of conversations that you're engaged in and day out. But again, it's incredibly important. So anyway, this is a momentous time, 50 years, and I look forward to another great 50 years, not as Provost, but of the Ombuds Office. And thank you, and let me turn it over to Kirsi so we can get to the really good stuff.
Thank you very much, Provost Moore. I am so pleased to welcome our keynote speaker, Dr. Laura Crawshaw. Dr. Crawshaw holds degrees in clinical social work and organizational behavior. She has held memberships in the International Society for the Psychoanalytic Study of Organizations, the American Psychological Association, the British Psychological Association, the Harvard Business Review Advisory Council, and the International Association on Bullying and Harassment at Work. She's also a founding member of Harvard's Institute of Coaching and a member of the Forbes Coaches Council. One of the reasons we have invited her here today is that Dr. Crawshaw is a leading specialist in researching and coaching abrasive leaders. She comes to us with extensive international experience. She has consulted for over 40 Fortune 500 companies, United Nations organizations, and NASA. Dr. Crawshaw published her first book, Taming the Abrasive Manager: How to End Unnecessary Roughness in the Workplace, in 2007. She founded the Boss Whispering Institute in 2009, whose mission is to relieve suffering in the workplace caused by abrasive leaders through research and training. We got to know each other, Dr. Crawshaw and I, when we worked together in 2013 to found a think tank, the Consortium on Abrasive Conduct in Higher Education. Her new book, which, by the way, we'll be raffling off at the end of the talk, Grow Your Spine and Manage Abrasive Leadership Behavior, a guide to those who manage bosses who bully. It's a handbook that shows employers how to fearlessly manage bosses who behave badly, ensuring a psychologically safe workplace. So hang on to your tickets. And with no further ado, Dr. Laura Crawshaw.
I want to tell you I'm really honored by your invitation to speak today. And today I'm going to be speaking on the topic of managing abrasive conduct in the age of the unruly, the power of intervention. I believe we are now in the age of the unruly. Unruly airline passengers, unruly politicians, unruly protesters, and in the workplace, unruly leaders. Unruly behavior is abrasive behavior. It rubs people the wrong way, disrupting and wounding. Over the past 40 years, and I'm really going to date myself with this talk, I've been on a journey to stop the suffering caused by unruly, abrasive leaders, also known as bosses who bully. I want to tell you about 2 transformative encounters on my journey to stop this suffering. My first encounter was with an employee who was suffering from workplace bullying. Way back in 1980, when you were still in high school, equipped with my newly minted degree in clinical social work, I bought a ticket for the ferry to Alaska and ended up working in the very first employee assistance program in that state. There was just me and my boss, a seasoned Alaskan with a background in labor relations. Employee assistance programs, as you probably know, provide confidential counseling to employees and their family members to assist with personal problems. I was prepared to help employees with their personal problems, including emotional distress, family problems, and substance abuse issues. One day, I was asked if I could see a new client for an emergency appointment, an employee of an oil company. He looked very tense. "How can I help you?" I asked. "I'm really angry with my boss. I'm fed up with the way he treats me." I asked him to elaborate, and he went on to tell me how his boss constantly berated and publicly humiliated him. He went on to describe a list of more bullying behaviors. He added that he'd gone to both human resources and his boss's boss about how he was being treated. Nothing happened, nothing changed. "I'm fed up, I'm really angry." "How angry are you?" I asked. "I'm thinking of killing him." Thanks to my clinical training, I knew enough to ask about homicidal ideation, an indicator of seriousness. Have you thought of how you do that? My gun's out in the truck. There it was, my first encounter with workplace bullying. Not knowing how to respond, I asked my client to excuse me for a moment, raced down the hallway, and told my boss what I was dealing with. "What should I do?" I asked him. "Ask him if he'll give you the gun." I did exactly that, and I will never forget the look of relief in his eyes as he did so. And I am sorry to say that's not the only gun we collected for the same reason. Alaska's a frontier. A lot of people had guns. This first encounter provoked 2 questions that have driven my professional journey since that day. Number 1, why would a boss treat an employee so badly? And number 2, why didn't the organization do anything about it? Thus began my journey to stop the suffering in the workplace caused by abrasive leaders. So I set forth on this journey by talking with them, by talking with abrasive leaders. Having developed a reputation for being good with difficult people, a few were referred to the EAP by their employers. Eventually, this work evolved into a full-time private practice, working with these individuals. By being curious and listening carefully, I learned why they treated others so badly. They were my greatest teachers. I discovered they were afraid. Afraid of what? They were afraid of being perceived to be incompetent. I mean, we all want to be perceived to be competent, don't we? Right? I discovered these abrasive leaders lacked confidence, and any perceived threats to their self-perception of competence had to be defended against with aggression. Let me put it this way. If any organism, human or otherwise, perceives a threat, instinctively they strive to defend against that threat through fight or flight. When achievement of their objectives is threatened, abrasive leaders choose fight. They resort to aggression. Discovering this underlying fear that caused their defensive bullying, through trial and error, I developed a way to calm the fear and stop the aggression, the boss whispering coaching method. With specialized help, the majority of individuals I found can develop insight into their behavior and turn it around. It is thrilling to see. I wrote about these discoveries in my first book, Taming the Abrasive Manager. The book was drawn for my doctoral dissertation, which had a fancy academic title, but really should have been titled, "What the heck am I doing with these leaders and why is it working anyway?" This brings me to my second transformative encounter on my professional journey, this time with an ombuds in 2008. Before that, I had never encountered an ombuds. I didn't know what they were, perhaps creatures from another planet. I'd never worked in an organization that had one. I'd never even heard the term. Sylvie Matteau, an ombuds with the Canadian government, having read my book, contacted me out of the blue and told me I needed to tell the world that abrasive leaders can change, that the suffering can stop. She urged me to submit a proposal to present to the International Association on Workplace Bullying and Harassment in 2008 in Montreal. I'd missed the submission deadline, so I called to see if I could still be considered. The chairman responded with surprise. "You mean that perpetrators can change their management styles? We've never heard of that." Well, they did. They got an earful. Sylvie, now head of the Boss Whispering Institute of Canada, and other ombuds were there to cheer me on. The following year, I founded the Boss Whispering Institute. Our mission is to relieve suffering in the workplace caused by abrasive leaders through research, training conflict practitioners and ombuds in Boss Whispering, and training employers in management intervention. According to the International Ombudsman Association, ombuds, quote, assist individuals and groups in managing conflicts and raising concerns in service of a highly effective and healthy organization. They operate from the principles of confidentiality, informality, impartiality, and independence. In my encounters with ombuds, I've learned they operate from a fifth principle, caring. They care deeply about individual and organizational suffering. Ombuds are at the nexus of suffering caused by workplace bullying, hearing the pain of employees subjected to abrasive leadership and striving to help these tormented individuals. I will never forget the words of one ombuds who, deeply frustrated at the organization's inability to stop the suffering, said, "I'm tired of helping good people leave." I wanted to stop this suffering. Ombuds want to stop this suffering, and they have done so by joining me on my mission. Kirsi, director of your Ombuds Office, learned of my work way back in 2010, when she then headed the Office of the Ombuds at the University of California, Santa Barbara. Together, we went on to co-found the Consortium on Abrasive Conduct in Higher Education. Through her efforts, your Office of the Ombuds now offers this specialized coaching for abrasive leaders, as well as management education, intervention education to faculty and administrative leadership at UC Boulder. Let me now talk about management intervention. Remember the employee who wanted to kill his boss? He told management about his suffering to no avail. And remember the second question that came out of this experience? Why didn't the organization do anything about the bullying? In the course of coaching abrasive leaders, I would talk with their superiors, their managers, directors, deans, chairs, department heads, anyway, the person above the abrasive leader. And I learned from these individuals. They too became my greatest teachers. I learned that most managers don't understand it is their duty to manage not only performance, but also conduct. I learned that most managers don't know how to manage conduct. And I learned most managers are afraid to manage abrasive conduct. Yes, there's that word again, afraid. Remember? Abrasive leaders afraid of being perceived to be incompetent. Their managers afraid of intervening. Well, why are they afraid? They taught me they're afraid of being harmed or doing harm. What do I mean by being harmed? Listen to the voices. If I confront Paul, he'll leave. He's our top producer or our top researcher or whatever. He'll file a complaint against me for harassment. He'll sue us. He'll attack me and find some way to retaliate. So that's the fear of being harmed. And what do I mean about the fear of doing harm? Again, listen to the voices. He's been a tremendous contributor over the years. I don't want to hurt him. She's always been loyal to me. I don't want to hurt her. I learned when faced with managing the conduct of an abrasive individual, most managers feel afraid, hopeless, and helpless. Everyone's afraid. The targets of bullying are afraid. Management's afraid, and even the abrasive leader. So who can stop this suffering? Only those with authority over the abrasive leader. And for those managers, what does it take for them to overcome their fear and manage abrasive behavior calmly, confidently, and compassionately? A management backbone. Let me take you through the vertebra. I am the guardian of my organization's mission and the employees who work to fulfill it. As such, it is my responsibility to promote performance and conduct that supports our mission and defend against unacceptable performance or conduct that threatens our mission. It is also my responsibility to provide a physically and psychologically safe environment for our employees, and in your case, also your students, our employees who work to fulfill our mission as well as students. It is my responsibility to monitor and manage for acceptable performance and conduct. I have the right and responsibility to determine acceptable performance and conduct for my employees. And if I don't do it, who will? My perceptions prevail. And as a manager, I have a duty to act on my perceptions of abrasive behavior. That's the management backbone. Now let me talk about the power of intervention. Intervention definition: to come between, to prevent or alter a result. Management intervention. What do I mean by that? It's to set limits and consequences for continued unacceptable conduct and offer help to that individual. What does it sound like? Paul, this cannot go on. If it does, I will be forced to. So we're setting the limit, saying the complaints, the negative perceptions, the distress cannot go on. And there is a consequence if it does. I don't want that to happen. I'd like to offer you help. Kirsi and her team were the first to pioneer these services in the academic ombuds realm. And by services, I mean ombuds as coaches for abrasive leaders. What's the objective? To help these abrasive leaders, to help them understand the destructive impact of their words and actions. Most of them are not aware of that, by the way. That was one of my discoveries. To learn to monitor and manage their own and others' emotions, and to develop strategies to achieve their objectives without resorting to aggression. And also ombuds as intervention educators for managers. The objective, to support the development of management backbone, help leadership understand their fiduciary responsibility to defend against threats to the organization's mission posed by unacceptable, abrasive, unruly conduct, whatever you want to call it, and educate leadership on how to intervene calmly and confidently with the abrasive leaders with compassion and respect. So, to the CU, I interned at the University of Colorado Medical Center in Denver, and down there they were calling it, UC in those days. Anyway, for a social work internship, so forgive me. Okay, but here today, on this, your 50th anniversary, I want to thank you, and I want to thank you all in your office for caring. I want to thank you for pioneering coaching help for abrasive leaders and intervention education for managers here at CU Boulder's academic and administrative departments. Your work is now being carried into other organizations, the United Nations organizations, the federal government, and private enterprise. And finally, I want to thank you for joining me and guiding me on our mission to relieve suffering in the workplace. Thank you from the bottom of my heart.